Hey, we're just working on a Great Depression pre-test then, okay? Thanks. I'm good. You can take it with you. Just went over the Roaring Twenties test. Oh, you didn't take it yet? Do you have a study hall today?
Oh, yeah.
What period? All right. I'll figure it out. Worst case, we'll just do it tomorrow. All right, so number one, name given to the people affected by the drought in middle part of America. Who we got? Eddie, what do you have? The Okies. Okay, yeah, good job. Good job. So we'll talk about the Dust Bowl probably next week, towards the end of next week, and how that affected agriculture in the United States. So not only were we facing a lot of economic issues during the 1930s, but also agricultural. And a lot of that had to do with just poor farming techniques and how the United States during World War I was trying to produce as much food as possible to feed the soldiers overseas. And no one ever told them to stop. So what happens if you continue to throw into the supply? What happens to the price? What happens to the price then, Kale? It tanks. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So if these crops are worth pretty much nothing, what happens to these farmers that are loaning out land and extra, I guess, space for their farm, their plantations, and their barns to create these barns? Well, they can't pay back the loans, right? So there comes a lot of foreclosures on farms and plantations all across the United States, especially in the Midwest. And just because of poor farming techniques, this caused many issues in the Midwest and the Great Plains region, where loose dirt just came to the surface. And there's really nothing compacting the dirt and the soil to the ground. So heavy winds just brought this up in the air and caused black blizzards across the United States, to the point where it even stretched all the way to the East Coast, to New York City. It was a weird phenomenon. And a lot of people associate that obviously with the Great Depression because it was happening right around that time. And we're being impacted not only in the industry side, but also in the agricultural side. So something needed to be done. All right, Herbert Hoover's plan for helping the economy. We're going to start with him tomorrow, okay? And what he's going to try to do to try to prevent the Great Depression from ensuing. Go ahead, Tanner.
Trickle down economics.
Trickle down economics. Good job. Anybody know a little bit about trickle down economics?
What number was that?
This is 2. Trickle down economics. No? All right. So because of the manufacturing and because of the supply was so large at the time, many businesses shut down in the United States. They thought, why would we just continue to add to the supply? Which is very true. So businesses started to slow down and stopped producing products. So what happens to the people that are working? Well, they're left on the streets. Okay, they don't have a job. And many of these businesses just shut down. To try to keep these people at work, the government decides to stimulate the economy by giving loans to many of these businesses to stay open. But what do you think these business owners do with that cash? They just pocket it, right? They don't open up because what's going to happen if we keep adding to the supply? Well, the prices are going to drop even more, and these businesses aren't going to make any money. And a lot of that has to do too with just pumping money into the economy. If you just keep pumping money into the economy, inflation is going to occur. The prices are going to be inflated, right? And resources like groceries or any type of items that people buy are going to be higher, right? So this is causing even more issues as we're just dumping money into the economy. We're trying to boost the economy by government spending. All right, we'll talk about it with the New Deal. These agencies were created to try to give jobs to the people. Okay, at this point, this was just to try to keep the private sector open. Okay, with Herbert Hoover. And we'll talk tomorrow some of his public works programs like the Hoover Dam success, right? How we're trying to push industrialization out to the West. And it's very successful and a reservoir for the West Coast. All right, 3, 10 cities that are springing up during the Depression. What do we got? Number 3. Go ahead, Noah. Hoovervilles. Yeah, good job. So when you go down to the gym, don't call it a Hooverville since Mr. Hoover's down there. Yeah. So these are just makeshift homes outside of large urban areas. Okay. And these are people that lost their homes, lost their job. So they're out on the streets. So these people go to the outskirts of the cities and try to make a makeshift community with really whatever they can get their hands on. So scrap pieces of wood, plywood, metal, okay, in some cases like tarps, cloths, and they just make these homes out of whatever they could get their hands on. So again, no running water, no electricity, okay, really no insulation, and we know how cold it gets, especially up here. Oh, it's snowing. Should be at home right now, right? Oh, but these Hoovervilles were terrible to live in, and it just showed really the time period. And why do you think they called them Hoovervilles? Why do you think they named it after the president? Go ahead, Noah. Yeah, they're shifting blame to him, right? They're expressing their thoughts and opinions of the president at this moment, at this time, because he didn't do it. He didn't do enough. And look at the standard of living now. We go from the roaring 20s, the highest of highs, to the lowest of lows in just a decade after World War One. All right, number 4, Roosevelt's plan for helping the economy. Roosevelt's plan for helping the economy. Tanner, go ahead. The New Deal. Good job. And what is the New Deal? Do you know a little bit about it?
It was his way of fixing the economy by stabilizing wages and the output of consumer products.
Okay, yeah, good job. Good job. So he includes the government to try to fix the wages, okay, set interest levels to try to boost the economy. And many different New Deal agencies and many different types of government funded jobs were created. All right. So, yeah, this cause may be an issue to the market as we're pumping more money into the economy. The government's doing that. Yeah, it does. But at the same time, we're improving public works programs. So, parks, building bridges, roads, okay, power generation to many other areas around the United States. So, yeah, there was a big benefit to it. And we'll talk about some of these agencies maybe next week, maybe the week after, okay, and how they were successful. Some of them still around today. All right, number 5, the result of massive drought in the middle part of our country. What do we got? Kind of already talked about this. Gabe, what do you have for 5? The Dust Bowl. Good job, the Dust Bowl. So, like I mentioned, with poor farming techniques and really just the terrible environment in the Midwest at this point, with the constant farming, the constant tilling of soil, this caused a lot of issues for many people to a point where they couldn't even walk outside because the dust, the debris in the air. And a lot of that had to do again because of poor farming techniques. And people literally were walking around almost like they had face coverings on, showing that they had no skin, they had masks on their faces because the dirt debris flying in maybe parts of their face and their eyes. So it kind of looked like they're walking in the desert, but it was just the Midwest of the United States. It looks pretty crazy to think about. And a lot of these pictures that you look at, because it's black and white, it looks like it's snow, like a blizzard just went through these areas. That's actually just dirt and debris. And I'll show you some pictures of that maybe towards the end of, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week sometime. Pretty amazing things though, catastrophic things, terrible, but something to see. All right, is there any questions? So we're going to dive into the Great Depression here soon. I know it's not a great chapter. They say the Great Depression, but it's not something that you should talk about, obviously, with great behind it. But it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And then after that, we'll get right into World War II.